Hello, Podcrushed. I'm trying to combine them.
So
and it was bad. It
things
was
there.
just really
All bad, none usable.
and in between a scene where I had to have a grisly. I'm dealing with death, and so for lunch we had this freelance photographer. Shout out to Rick. He came and he set up all these partitions with just enough of an opening so that everything could be seen by anybody who was entering the lunchroom but not eating lunch. And he did his best because that's all that was provided him, you know? So I go in and he was so thoughtful and kind, but I just have to say he did not bring the spirit of my show You. He brought much more of the Podcrushed spirit, and there was something about those two spirits in that moment that they were really fighting each other. and I have this prop of a stapler, thanks to Sophie and Nava's genius creative implementation of a stapler in
It was
LA.
Nava. I have to give Nava credit on that one.
I mean, I brought the stapler, but it was really Veronica, our photographer, who became
We're all
enamored.
passing the blame.
No, became enamored with the use of the stapler in the shot.
Our photographer? Robin.
I keep calling her Veronica. Robin, our
They're both
photographer,
good
Robin.
names. We won't edit that out. We're really indebted to Carrot Top, iconic prop comic.
Yeah.
I stapled my finger during the shoot, and it was a bloodbath. And so it really brought them together. No. I did staple my finger, but it was kind of just out of stress because I was trying to be, sweet in some way. And Rick was being so encouraging. Bless him, did not have any idea who I was or I don't think what my show was about at all. And he kept on trying to encourage me to, he saw your guys' pictures, which you'd already shot, and they're you're doing a lot of how do we describe it? What are you doing? You're doing
a lot of poor, a lot of unusable.
I was talking to my mom and I was like, there's not one normal picture in that bunch. Every picture I'm rolling my eyes or making a kissy face or using the stapler. It's one of the three.
Using the stapler as a phone.
It was definitely a lot of what is that called? Gesticulating
childish garbage.
No, you each had enough of a normal shot, I think. But that's what we had to go off of. And so Rick is, kind of trying to encourage me to do those things. And I'm thinking to myself, I am not doing those things. I am not.
I'm not an amateur.
And so I actually have to, I start very thinking of you guys, thinking of him and just time. And I'm just trying to explain to him, so the whole.
That's actually when he stapled his finger. He was like, I'm already in so much pain. Yeah. I just need to distract myself.
So I'm trying to explain to him graciously, in some way that they really do their thing and I do my thing. And
he's like, let's just set us apart here.
So it was a good time in the end.
The moral of this story is that the decision to have Sophie and I go first and you base your takes off of us was bizarre. There are harsher words than I can use, but I'm going to stick with bizarre. Clearly, you should have gone first and we should have followed your lead.
I know. Yeah. It hit me after we did the photo shoot that the purpose of this rebrand was to age it up.
That's so true. Oh my God.
I know. I feel like I got home and I was like, shoot. Yeah. I just totally did not think about this. Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, we'll see what we end up with.
Yeah.
You'll know.
You already know, listening. There's 6-year-olds being
You'll DM us.
I don't like the way these guys talk. More Roblox, please. Speaking of growing up, let's get into our guest. So we have Maya Hawke. She's an actor and musician. You know her from films like Asteroid City, Maestro, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And then, of course, there's a series like Stranger Things, which you've probably heard of and seen. You might know her from that. Also, the BBC's Little Women. And she's got a growing catalog of records. Her new record, Chaos Angel, is what she was here to talk about, but we covered a lot of ground. You're really going to enjoy this one. Don't go anywhere. Welcome to Podcrushed. We're your hosts. I'm Penn.
I'm Nava.
And I'm Sophie. And I think we would have been your middle school besties.
Losing touch in high school and never reconnecting as adults.
Hi, guys.
Hi. Welcome.
So, Nava, Sophie, I've mentioned these to you. So Maya and I did, the most recent thing we did together was a reading with a bunch, kind of like an all-star cast. I'm not including myself in that, but
me neither.
This ridiculous cast.
Wow.
That was back in 2017.
It was a long time ago, 2016, 2017?
2016, maybe even 2015. I know that I was touring at the time, and I just happened to be in Brooklyn for like 2 days, and I made it happen. And we stood this play up, read it, after everybody having only read through it like one day prior, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it was Chekhov's The Cherry Orchard, yeah.
It was a modern adaptation setting Chekhov's The Cherry Orchard in the American South.
That's right. And then before that, the first time we ever met was, it would have been...
a Michael Amareda short film.
Yes. And he directed something that I'd worked in with your father. What's funny is that I have worked with Maya and both her mother and her father.
Wow.
That is amazing.
It's a very strange, very small community that we occupy space inside of.
You at 12, you know what we do here.
Mm-hmm.
Who were you at 12? How were you seeing the world? Where were you and what were you doing?
To understand where I was at 12, you have to kind of go back to where I was before, which is I started off at a really prim and proper school in New York City called Brearley, where you had to wear a uniform. It was only girls. And I was able to disguise my dyslexia from them until around the 3rd grade. And then the chapter books started getting harder and harder to memorize. And I got, and I was exposed and then pretty much asked to leave. And then I went to a school called Windward. I mean, I think that if whatever administrator heard that, they'd be like, we were going for a mutual decision thinking you'd be benefited by a different academic, but it was I was like bumped down from lower and lower reading level groups until there was the bottom, and then there was nowhere else to go. And 4th and 5th I did at Windward, and then 6th, 7th, 8th I did this place called Rudolf Steiner, which is a really like specific kind of style learning place. And so I had just around when I was 12, I'd just gotten out of an environment that was really focused on like kids' individual learning styles and kind of put back into a more normal schooling system, but that was still really specific. And I was intensely moralistic. I was really political, mostly in like environmental. I was an avid environmentalist. I really didn't think anyone should curse. I really thought that any day now I was going to be able to talk to animals and have full conversations. That my powers were going to set in any moment now, and they would explain my whole origin story. And I wore like nightgowns to school. I had not yet reached the point of like. I remember right at 12, my mom made me this amazing parrot Halloween costume, where we glued multicolored feathers onto angel wings, and I wore a rainbow dress, and I showed up, and it was right when kids started cunning like nurses, like or trying to look slutty. Yeah, and I was crying in the closet because I was so ashamed to be ashamed of the costume that my mom had made me.
Yeah, right.
And so I was right. That was kind of right around that time period.
Maya, this is the most beautiful, like evocative portrait I think we've ever had from a guest. I have so many questions, but I guess my first question is the no cussing thing. Did that come from your parents? Like, where did that sense of morality, propriety come from?
I think my parents just didn't very much. And then I started interacting with some other adults in the world, like people my parents were dating or and they did a lot. And I was like, that is I like, you are bad. Like, that's a bad, and that was a power that I had as a 12-year-old to reprimand adults. And I think I had a real, like, I want power complex. And that was like, I have a lot of responsibility and no authority, in my head. And I was like, I have an authority on this. Kids do it in TV shows all the time. Yeah. And I can tell you that you're bad because you said fuck. And that makes you bad. And I can't talk about the other reasons I think you're bad, but I know that I got you on that one.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Wow, that's so insightful.
A little controlling.
Yeah. Controlling. Yeah, I was going to say, like, that paints a little bit of a picture for me of you as, like, maybe a little like bossy. I wonder if you were like that with other kids.
I was an oldest sibling. So I was definitely bossy with my brother and
How much
with
younger
people 3.5 years.
Okay.
I was bossy with him, and I was bossy with people who I saw as being wow, I realize I'm just about to justify my bossiness. Yeah. It's like I wasn't bossy to the good children, but I was. And I think in that what I just said, I guess I was bossy, but I was also. It's a weird contrast because I was also shy. Like I was also the kind of kid who'd wait at the top of the slide and let kids go down in front of me, wanting to take my own time going down the slide. You know, like it was a weird contrast between being like, you shouldn't do that. Be nice to your mother. Like that was, and like, no, go ahead. You know, like there was a strange, I think just adult complex. I just thought I was an adult. I started auditioning for the first time at 16, but I didn't get the part. And it was an exception where I hadn't been allowed to audition for anything. But then because it had happened organically through like a school acting teacher and a community reach out, I was allowed to audition for this one project, but that was the only work experience I'd had until I graduated high school at 17.
Maya, we did do a lot of prep. We all are fans of yours. We sort of follow your career. And in one of these things that we were reading, we heard that it wasn't uncommon for you and your dad to write poetry, paint, play guitar together well into the night. And I was curious, I had two sort of follow-ups to that. Do you remember what your early poems were about? And did you have kind of a similar relationship with your mom, or how did the arts kind of express themselves in your relationship with your mom?
You know, my mom was much more interested in information. Like my big memory of like, I had a really hard time sleeping as a kid. So I think a lot of these things of like were tools with which to kill time before I would pass out, you know, and trying not to put on A Bug's Life for the 50,000th time, you know. But my mom, what I remember her doing really was teaching me information. Like teaching me about how tectonic plates work and what the core of the earth is, and like the different layers, and about Pangaea and like tectonic shifts and earthquakes. And like she is one of the smartest people I've ever met in my whole life, and is a really avid reader and really prefers nonfiction, and is kind of consuming a ton of information. And she would teach me a lot about the world and history, and then we would watch movies together and stuff like that. But then kind of and we would make, like I said, like she would make my Halloween costume together. Like there was tactile art making steps. And then with my dad, we would just write a lot of poetry and do a lot of watercolors.
There's a story that you've told, which I think was at 12 years old, where you attended a dress rehearsal.
My dad loves this story. I went to the dress. My dad was doing this thing called the Bridge Project, where he was doing the Cherry Orchard and A Winter's Tale in rep, which is extremely cool. PSA, I would like to do one someday. And I came to, it was at I was at Rudolf Steiner, so I probably was 12. And I went to the dress rehearsal, and I sat and watched the whole thing. And it was pretty much pornographic to me as a kid. Like it was so exciting. The dance that they did this amazing dance, and Rebecca Hall was so beautiful. And and she stood still like a statue for like what seemed to me like 8 hours, and I didn't understand how she did it. And she moved again at the end, and I was like, oh, her magic powers have kicked in. And this whole show, it was musical and colorful and sensual, and I felt like my brain electrified. And my dad cites this moment, and then I wanted to stay and watch it again. And my dad cites this moment as the time in which he knew that I was unavoidably sick and would become an artist. Like that there was no way around the illness. And I do think that like it was a moment for me, but it was a moment in the spectrum of many moments of falling in love with this work. And really that whole, sometimes it's hard for me to differentiate between Coast of Utopia, The Bridge Project, and Macbeth, because two of them happened at Lincoln Center, and they were all really important to me because I loved to be backstage, and I loved to like go to the different departments and hang out with costume, and like it's just where I wanted to be, and then I wanted to watch. And I remember at Coast of Utopia, I got to go out on stage. I don't know if anyone saw that play in New York, but at the beginning of it, there's like a fake ocean where there's a big silk sheet that was thrown over the stage. It's gorgeous stage design, and all the cast stood under it and like bumped it up, like creating waves. And I got to go under it and bump it up, and then they pull the stage, like the thing back, and we all have to run and, you know, hide back again. And I still have the moon from that sky in my, I used to have it in my bedroom all throughout my teen years. And I think being backstage at these incredible theatrical performances and getting to watch them is a huge part of the reason why I wanted to be an actor.
That makes sense to me. Being on a set can be, if you're sort of made for it, it's a very exciting place to be.
I mean, there's almost nothing more exciting if it's and it's, to me, I feel like I learn a lot about people sometimes based on whether or not they enjoy being on set when they're not working. I think that's not that it's not a positive or a negative, but I think it says a lot. Because I've noticed some people you bring them to set, and when they don't have a job, whether or not they work in the arts, and they're like, they have fun, they watch a take, they go get a snack, they shake some hands, and they're like, all right, that's it.
Yeah.
And other people go and they're like, I'll hang out all day. I want to go check out all the departments, and I want to sit and talk to people, and and just watch take after take after take. And that's what I was like as a kid. And it's very rare that people don't find that boring. And if they don't, it says a lot, I think.
My sister, my half sister, who I say half because she's so much older than me, 17 years. And we really didn't grow up together. We're sort of like two only children, but she came to, and she really is not a part of this world. Like she has 6 kids and lives in the suburbs, and, you know, is just really, really not a part of a media making, like the apparatus that is Hollywood. And when she came on the set of Gossip Girl years ago, she said that I seemed like an astronaut going into space, because the whole thing, as she could tell, I mean, she seemed fascinated by it, but she said like the whole apparatus like sort of pivots around the actors, you know, for better or worse. But that is sort of how it operates. Like when they're ready to shoot, you get called up, and then everybody is getting quiet, and then everybody's sort of like making sure you look good, everything in front of camera looks good, and then once you're in front of camera, it's, you know, pin drop silent. And there's like an urgency.
On a good set.
Yeah, sure. Actually, as I said it, I was like, it's not pin drop silent, but yeah, maybe
I feel like
set.
On a good set, they figure out how to make the actors feel like the set revolves around them. And on a bad set, it's revealed how much it doesn't. Like, you know, and that's my take. But yes, I agree.
No, I think that's accurate, because it really it doesn't. It is quite collaborative, but I think those moments leading up to, you know, action is when everything has to really tamp down, and that's, so, you know, just from an outsider's perspective, I remember that's what she was saying. But yeah, I can't remember being. I honestly cannot think of a time right now that I was on set, and which says something, and I wasn't working. I don't think I would stick around all day, frankly.
It might say that you have worked your whole life a lot and really hard.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, right.
And that, you know, that your relationship to set is as a place of work. And mine wasn't necessarily. I mean, it's becoming that. And
that's true.
But it still has all of this embedded. I still feel like a lucky visitor a lot of the time.
That's interesting.
And I have a relationship to it that's like community, where it felt like the family that I was being brought up by were a family of the people that come together to make movies and put on plays. And so still when I walk on a set, I feel, and sometimes it's literal, like sometimes there's a grip who'll come up to me and be like, just so you know, I hung out with you when you were 4 for 10 hours, you know?
Right.
But sometimes it's literal family and literal history. But what I really feel when I walk on set is history and family, and yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, both your parents seem to me, I mean, I don't know either of them very well at all, but I think in interviews when they're speaking about you and what you've said is it seems like they both highly value the sort of the cultural contribution it is to make art. You know, for the person who makes it, and then for hopefully, you know, the people that you're making it for. And there's something that it seems like you got the best version and the best combination of that. And sure, there's, you know, nothing is perfect, but you just seem like you love what you do. You're like thankful that you're doing it, and you're very excited to be doing it.
I think that's 100% true. And I think it's actually a really lucky thing to feel, because I'd be interested in what you thought about this, but I feel like in today's time, I worry about people who are growing up and entering this industry now and learning about this industry now, because even just that horrible word, that content word, like we're all feeling like,
I wasn't sure which word you were going to say. I was like, which word is it going to be? And you
that
said
one.
Content.
Yeah.
Yes.
That horrible C word, content is, drives me insane. And I feel like I grew up raised by people who like thought about films and saw the cultural impact of films shot on film, where people really seemed to care about like what the movies were that were being made and whether or not they were good, and if this good director made another good film or a bad one, and like who makes commercial movies and who makes art movies, and all of that was really important. And now it feels like it's all kind of blurred together and become this hodgepodge mess of confusion, you know? And so I feel lucky to, even though, because I think there's actually maybe an equal amount of opportunity to make art movies now. There's just, because there's so much more accessibility, it's just the conversation is really different. So I feel lucky to have been brought up understanding, at least understanding that old conversation.
Yeah. So I first gave AG1 a try because I wanted to find a way to support my digestion. Since drinking AG1 daily, I felt such a real difference in my daily health and energy levels. That's because AG1 is a foundational nutrition supplement that supports your body's universal needs, like gut optimization, stress management, and immune support. Since 2010, AG1 has led the future of foundational nutrition, continuously refining their formula to create a smarter, better way to elevate your baseline health. Not only did I replace my multivitamin with AG1, but I love that every scoop also includes prebiotics, probiotics, and digestive enzymes for gut support. I recommend AG1 to all my family and friends because of their incredible team of doctors and scientists who have done the work to make a formula that can really support our overall health. Even my cousins have started drinking AG1, and they always tell me how much more energetic they feel. AG1 actually came into my life at a time when I was on a work trip with none other than my co-host Penn Badgley, and we were staying at a home with, I have to say it, a lot of sick children. And Penn had smartly traveled with his travel packets of AG1. I hadn't, and he very generously gave them to me. And since then, I've been a convert. If there's one product that I had to recommend to elevate your health, it's AG1. And that's why I'm excited to welcome them as a new partner. If you want to take ownership of your health, it starts with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3, K2, and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase at drinkag1.com/podcrushed. That's drinkag1.com/podcrushed. Check it out.
This episode is brought to you by Philo. I know it's not just me. TV has gotten really complicated. I'm either endlessly searching for my favorite shows, or I subscribe to probably over a dozen different streaming services now to make sure that I can watch everything I want to watch, my kids want to watch, the wife wants to watch. You don't even save that much money anymore. In fact, I think I spend more money than I did on cable. I'm not sure if it's the same for you, but thankfully Philo has changed all that for me. One service, all the stuff I need. Philo's got current seasons of the shows I can't miss live on networks like A&E, MTV, Discovery, and TLC. It has classics like The Office, Martin, and Friends, which I never get sick of, and all of the incredible originals on AMC Plus, from Mad Men to Orphan Black. Don't forget the library of more than 75,000 movies and shows, all of which I can save and rewatch anytime for a whole year. With Philo, you can never miss a minute of shows like Friends, Catfish, Paw Patrol for the kids. And Philo has amazing features like unlimited DVR for 1 year. And it also allows for multiple profiles and multiple streams. Best of all, with Philo, you get all of this for just $28 a month. No contracts, no hassles, just one subscription and a world of entertainment. So go to philo.tv/podcrushed and check it out for a free 7-day trial. That's philo.tv/podcrushed to start watching. I'm also interested in what the future of media is going to be like, because the automatic part of it, the numbers, the algorithms, the computation, that's not going away.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. I'm really curious to see, as you said, the next 10 years. You'll just come on season 14 of Podcrushed.
Yeah, and, I'd like that a lot. I would
Sophie's
like that
daughter will be hosting.
Yeah.
I'm curious too. I agree. I don't think anything is going away. I do think that as conscious, thoughtful citizens and artists and people, we get to examine our responsibility to consume that information. And whether or not it is our responsibility, or if it's actually our responsibility not to. And I'm, because there's all these old stories about Sam Shepard's friends not letting him go to the party at when his first play was on Broadway. They were like, "You're gonna get consumed by the industry if you do that. Like you can't take the praise. You got to just go back and keep writing. You're an artist, man. You're not a industry hack, And now it feels like that whole attitude is dead. Maybe for the better, but nobody would tell you not to go accept your party or your award. There's no cool level to being like, fuck the man. No one would tell you not to give your song away to an advertisement, or the industry is so economically deprived that artists are in no way being encouraged. You can't make a living wage and fuck the man. So we're like, you used to be able to kind of buy a house and fuck the man, and now it's really hard to. So it's
there's a different context in which you have to fuck the man in order to have a house now.
Yes,
basically is the no.
Yeah, it's true. No, that was a laugh, not a scowl.
Yeah. Maya, before we're talking about your career in some sense. We're talking about art and movie making and music making, but before we talk about specific projects, I want to just ask you a couple of questions that we ask every guest on Podcrushed about middle school. One of them is, what were your first experiences around love, in quotation marks, maybe a crush or your first rejection or heartbreak around that time, around 12?
I remember at exactly 12, I had my first kiss. And it was actually in the apartment building that my mom now lives in. Someone was having an 8th grade graduation party. And my first kiss was this boy who I will name drop, named Carter Scott. And I thought he would be an appropriate person to kiss because he already made out with my 2 friends. And I was like, well, if that had already happened, then he's probably pretty safe. And it was right around when hookup culture was starting. But not where where people would come up to you at a party and they'd be like, do you want to hook up? Which in some ways is like a good consent dynamic, but is also
that's
very...
That's what I think is the best part of that.
Yeah.
Is definitely...
is the do you want to?
Sure.
Is good. But it was also pretty intense when there was 3, not to overestimate my prettiness. I was just new at a new party environment. I was kind of an unfortunate 12-year-old, but I was there and there were 3 boys and they were all like, hey, we're just curious, which one of us do you want to hook up with?
Wow.
And they were all standing there and I felt a lot of pressure. So I picked the one that my friends had already hooked up with because that seemed safe, vetted territory. Yeah. And then we went upstairs and we made out and I remember my eyes were open. And at one point I was like, I'm so sorry, my mom is calling, and she was not. And
did you have a cell phone on you?
Call. I did have a cell phone. Yeah. I just got to take this call, and I didn't enjoy myself very much, and so that was an interesting chapter. But my first real crush was kind of twofold. I had a really big crush on my friend that I went to middle school with. And it was like that confusing period of like, is this girl my friend, or do I have a crush on her? Like what's going on in this environment? And I had that, and that was kind of sweet and confusing and like playful and lovely, actually. And then I had a big crush on this boy I went to school with, who was like the bad boy who like smoked a lot of weed and like skipped class and played piano in the lobby. And and that was the first person I was like, I love you.
Yeah.
And like cried over and ate too much ice cream and So those were kind of my first experiences of that.
I love that the bad boy played piano in the hallway.
I know, like he's a bad boy, but he's still an artist.
Yeah.
But he's still an artist. That was what my school was like, sort of, was like the bad kids were like, I'm cutting class and going to the Met.
Yeah.
I ended up going to St. Anne's, which, Penn, I think you're familiar with.
A bit. Yeah.
And I ended up going there, and it was like, the bad kids were the kids who'd cut class to go hang out with their art teacher. It was a strange environment.
We have one other question we ask everyone. I feel like your parrot story might count if you want to use that one. But if you have another one that comes to mind, we ask our guests if they have like, there's like a particularly awkward or embarrassing memory from those teen years that like really stands out.
There's so many, so many. But here's a classic. The parrot one is poetic and great, but a classic is that I was on a like kind of like an Outward Bound style camping adventure with these two. It was like this was 10, 12-year-olds and two 18-year-olds. One of whom was a Hollister model. Okay, an actual living,
I forgot
breathing
about Hollister.
Hollister model.
Breathing.
And he liked Taylor Swift.
Oh my gosh.
And
he had it all.
He had
I'm already
it
in
all.
love.
He had it all. He liked Taylor Swift. He made amazing playlists, and he was a Hollister model. And that 2-week period when we were in the middle of nowhere was when I first stopped my period. And we were on a camping trip on the top of a mountain, like in a tent, and I thought I'd shit myself. And because that's what you think sometimes. And I was like, what is going on? And then I had to go talk to the Hollister model and tell him that I figured out what was going on, because I'd been appropriately talked to by parental figures, and I had to explain to him that we needed to hike 6 miles off the trail to a convenience store with which to purchase the appropriate equipment. And making 10, 12-year-olds hike 6 miles for a tampon was horrific.
Wait, so you did. You guys hiked.
We did.
The 6 miles.
Wow.
And they all knew why?
I don't know if they did, but we ended up at a convenience store, and and I told one girl, and so you all know what happens if you tell one girl. Yeah.
Wow, Maya, that's a classic period story. Like at the summit with the model.
Yes.
I mean,
it's classic. It's classic.
Was his shirt on or off? Just curious.
It was on. It was on. It was on. But it did come off.
It
did come off at times. It did come off at times. Yeah, it was a very eventful trip. We also got chased by a bear at one point.
Wow.
It was really.
Oh my God.
This is actually a funny story and very fast. But we got chased by. We were hiking up this mountain, and then all of a sudden we turned a corner and there was a bear, and then we had to run the other way and like drop our packs, because that's what you have to do. So we were all dropping our packs. They had our passports, and then we got to the bottom of the mountain. We'd escaped the bear. And we all needed our packs back. And so we found out that they'd gotten our packs back because the bear had drunk all of our NyQuil and then passed out on top of all of our packs.
No, that cannot be real.
This is like the opposite of Cocaine Bear. I love this.
He just drunk a whole bottle of NyQuil and like passed out. And then they were able to move the bear, inoculate the bear and move the bear and then take the pack.
This whole trip sounds like it's scripted.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I know. It was very funny.
If you're anything like me, my condolences, because it's a little bit hard up here. But what it does mean is that you care about where your food comes from, especially when it comes to quality cuts of meat. So that's why I want to talk a little bit about Butcher Box. They deliver 100% grass-fed beef, free-range organic chicken, pork-raised, crate-free, and wild-caught seafood right to your doorstep. So with ButcherBox, you're not getting just convenience, you're getting guaranteed quality. You can imagine the best cuts of meat chosen by experts, delivered frozen at peak freshness. Frozen at peak freshness. Ooh. Actually, I've been cooking with ButcherBox for last few weeks now with chicken, and I got to tell you, it's like night and day. The cuts are really flavorful and tender. The thighs and the chicken are just so I've been adding them to every box I get. Plus, ButcherBox offers free shipping on all orders and exclusive member deals. They also include these great recipes with every box, perfectly curated to complement the cuts you've selected. Sign up for ButcherBox today by going to butcherbox.com/podcrushed and use code podcrushed at checkout and enjoy your choice of bone-in chicken thighs, top sirloins, or salmon in every box for an entire year, plus get $20 off. Again, that's butcherbox.com/podcrushed and use code podcrushed.
Ordering furniture online can be hit or miss, but that's why I love Article. I actually have several Article furniture pieces in my home. I have an Article couch, an Article armchair, an Article coffee table. We get so many compliments on those pieces, specifically the sofa and the armchair. People talk about all the time. Super comfortable. They look good, stylish, chic, just all around great pieces. The delivery was seamless too. Article offers fast, affordable shipping across the US and Canada. I was able to choose the delivery time that worked for me, and they kept me updated every step of the way. No waiting around all day for your delivery, which I love. Plus, their customer service is fantastic. Article's knowledgeable customer care team made sure my experience was smooth and stress-free from start to finish. Article believes in delightful design for every home. Thanks to their online-only model, they offer some really delightful prices too. Their curated assortment of mid-century modern, coastal, industrial, Scandi, boho designs makes furniture shopping simple and enjoyable. Article is offering our listeners $50 off your first purchase of $100 or more. To claim, visit article.com/podcrushed and the discount will automatically be applied at checkout. That's article.com/podcrushed for $50 off of your first purchase of $100 or more.
So Maya, you are currently in Atlanta filming Stranger Things, one of the most iconic kind of projects of all time. We have a few questions.
How excited are you? Part 2. Wait a second. I'm actually shocked that you haven't shot it yet. And I know how this stuff works, but like that was a long time ago, part 1. Yeah. Wait, I'm sorry. Isn't there a part 1?
Yeah, there was a part 1. You're filming.
Yeah, it's the last season. The last season.
It's the last season.
Yeah. Okay. But the first part did come out. Is that not true?
I guess it depends on how you're talking about it. Like season 4 and season 5 are very connected. Like
that's what it is. That's what it is. I mean,
and the season 4 had a part 1 and part 2 because they separated them. So the last 2 episodes came out at a different time, which is unusual for streaming. But this is its own season that is a continuation. But it's the finale. And it has been a long time since last season. The show has been a little bit cursed. Like the pandemic happened right as we were starting the season 4. The strike happened right as we were starting this season. We're very lucky, and our showrunners, Matt and Ross, are really take a lot of responsibility. They have an amazing team of writers, but they're very involved. And they write a lot, and they are very intense and serious about the quality of the continued writing. And so it takes a long time to write each season. So there's always a big, and it takes a long time to shoot them because we're making basically 8 movies because the episodes are very long and 8 episodes.
But like how long does it take to shoot it?
Oh, a year.
A year.
What?
That's really long production for a TV show.
Wow. Yes, it is. That's true.
So Atlanta is like your second home.
Yeah.
You know what? It's become that. I've had a really interesting relationship to it over the years. When I first came here, it was the loneliest place in the world. My first season, I was so lonely. And I think I thought that I was going to go to like summer camp. But because it's such a big ensemble show, and I wonder if I know you've worked on big ensemble shows and on leading parts, and being on a big ensemble show is like a lot of time off. it's like they've got you, right? They've like, you're a series regular, they've got you, but they don't need you every day. So it's a lot of waiting for your turn and being on hold and weather cover.
Yeah.
And
it's like just enough that you're always busy, but you're not. And so you're in this sort
just
of
enough that you're not available to
kind
do
of-
anything else, but not enough that you're actually busy or tired. You know, so it's tricky, but it's great. And like, it's every year I've gotten closer and closer with my cast and gotten more and more comfortable in the city and more and more able to take care of myself here and bring community here and both bring and build. So this season I'm really happy. I love my house. I figured out what neighborhood I wanted to live in. You know, all these things that are so important that when you grow up in New York, especially, like, that city is so small in a certain way. Like, you can kind of live anywhere and get to anywhere and you don't have to drive. And when you're out here in the world, it's important that you're in the neighborhood that you like, near people that you like, and near restaurants you like, and that you can walk. And it takes a while to figure that out, you know, but I did it just in the nick of time.
Yeah. I love your character of Robin, and I feel like that character brought something really playful to season 3, and I wondered what it was like to become part of a show that was already such a sensation, like to join in season 3.
You know, it was intimidating, especially because I'm a person who loves TV. Like as a viewer, I'm almost a little embarrassed about it, but getting less and less. Like I like procedurals. I like sitcoms. Like I love art movies, and I go to the movies and I watch them, but I watch a lot of TV in my personal downtime. Like, it's on when I'm doing the laundry, and I put it on in the morning, and it's like I'm a little bit addicted to background noise, I think. And I often feel that when they bring in new characters in shows, that I get frustrated. Like, I'm like, I like my original cast. I don't need this to follow this new plot line. I like, you know, I understand that the main cast wants some time off, but you know, but they either end the show or. So I was worried about, you know, people feeling about my character that way. On such a beloved show, and I was intimidated, and you know, but what I quickly figured out is that the star of Stranger Things is the writing and the style, and that it is actually such a functional kind of apparatus that if you would just kind of breathe and exist within it and tell the jokes and, you know, and follow the story and care, it really holds you really well. It doesn't leave you hanging out to dry in any way. And so I was very pleasantly surprised.
You know, Maya, now that you're saying that, I feel like Stranger Things has introduced new characters better than almost anyone. Like Sadie in season 2 was so well received.
Right,
you in season 3, Eddie in season 4. Like, every new character has brought something new and fresh to the show that I think almost everyone would have welcomed. But yeah, that is actually unusual.
I think that's true. I think that a lot of credit goes to Carmen Cuba for that. She's an incredible casting director, and she is so thoughtful about what the show needs and what a good counterbalanced energy, and also the premise that the brothers do, where they always take a new character and put them with a beloved character, especially in the beginning, like putting me with Joe. Yeah, everyone wants to see what Joe Keery's going to do next. And putting you know, Eddie with Gaten, and you know, you literally, anytime Gaten's on screen, it's a good time to watch. So they really also take care of their new cast by not leaving them out to dry on their own arc that no one's invested in. They involve them in essential arcs, which I think is a crucial way to introduce a new character.
Yeah, that is amazing. This is an aside, but have you ever seen the treatment for Stranger Things, what they use to sell it?
No.
Okay, we can send it to you, but I think you can also Google it. Just for anyone who's listening, who's in production, this gets passed on. Penn and I are producers. We have like TV shows and movies in production. This gets passed on to you as a new producer for like, this is the gold standard of treatments. If you can emulate this, your treatment will stand out. And it's completely true. It's like the treatment for Stranger Things is art. It's incredible. I highly recommend it. Yeah.
Oh, I want to see it.
If you don't
That's
find it,
awesome.
we'll send it to you. But
awesome.
Yeah, it's a lovely, lovely thing. Okay, I have some questions about working with your dad, and I think you have an upcoming project with your mom. So you starred opposite, if anyone doesn't know, her dad is Ethan Hawke. You played his daughter in the miniseries The Good Lord Bird. And what was it like to play your real father's fictional daughter?
It wasn't it wasn't as eventful as you would think. He's a wonderful actor and is wonderful to act with. And I've been acting with him my whole life, reading plays in our living room and doing things like the play reading that Penn and I did together. And, that's been a kind of constant in my life. And so it actually just felt very integrated.
Maya, you are also a musician. I know that Penn is the most musical of the three. So I think he had a few questions about your music that I won't steal from him.
Yeah, well, so first of all, I did notice that you said that you're... And any quote, even if it's not a sensational quote, I don't want to take it out of context and like hold you to it, but you have been quoted saying that you were the most excited about releasing this record, and it's coming out end of May. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, it's definitely the most excited I've ever been about releasing a music project.
Okay, that makes sense.
And I think that what I'm really talking about is that I feel like I've been in every realm of my work, actually, but especially in music, really learning on the job. Learning about recorded music, learning about writing music. And I think that with every record that I've made, the space between what I want to have made and what I made is getting narrower because I'm learning more how to have this song I hear in my head come out of the speakers. So I am surrounding myself with people who are getting to know me more and better and better and know how to help me do that too. And so that's why I hope that every record I put out, it becomes the most excited I've ever been to put anything out, because I hope that I just keep closing that gap.
Yeah, that makes sense. You mentioned the people that you're making it with. I know two of them. I forget if you know this, Ben and Will.
Oh, you know Ben and Will?
Yeah, so they've played not only with my wife, but Domino.
Yeah, I do know this a little bit.
They also have played with Joan as Policewoman. Have you heard this?
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. They're amazing together.
Yeah, they are amazing together. Ben is this incredible, all the people we're mentioning are incredible multi-instrumentalists, really. Ben is particularly in just the technical craft of playing a few different instruments. He's a master, right?
You can either have him in your band or have three people.
Wow.
He does the job of three people.
Yeah, he's incredibly talented. He's got a little bit of like savant energy. He's very, very gifted. Like as a bass player, he's just insane what he brings so I don't know a lot about him as a songwriter or Will, and Will plays guitar. I hope I'm remembering that correctly, right?
Will plays guitar like no one I've ever. He plays a lot of things. He can play piano and he can play both, but his extension of his arm, like his sword, his extension of his self is his guitar. And
So I'm just curious, how did you meet them, and is your writing process with them, or do you sort of write more like you and a guitar or a piano?
It's been different for all of my records. My first record, I met them as session musicians. They were hired by Jesse Harris, who I was co-writing with for my first record, just to play in the band. And I got along with them really well and was really inspired by them. And so then I made my second record with Ben producing and Will and Ben writing. And then Ben got this guy involved in Christian Lee Hudson, who also now happens to be my boyfriend. And he wrote music and played on my second record. And now he's produced my third record, and Ben and Will have written music and played on it. So I've been kind of like just collecting people and writing styles and adapting and changing in the way it was. And for my first two records, it was very clean cut. I would write poems and send them, and they would put music to them and send them back. And then we would kind of see if they fit right and make some little changes. And then that would be the song. And then on this record, I wrote a lot more music, and it really started me on a journey that I'm on in a major way right now of becoming a more empowered writer and musician on my own. I think that something that I wrote all my own songs and sang until I was like 14. Then I stopped playing music for a while. Then I started again. And when I started again, I started working with Ben and Will and Jesse. And they're so good. Like Penn was saying, they're so amazing. And at the stage that I was in my own development, when I kind of heard the song being played by them, I was like, I don't need to play. Even if I could play that song, why would I bother?
Yeah.
And it kind of wasn't until really I saw it wasn't until I started realizing that there were people who were playing on stage and writing songs and singing them with chords that I knew. You know, Ben and Will are like jazz trained, school of music,
and they deconstruct
like, best
everything,
of the best.
And they play in a way that you can't
replicate
see yourself doing it. You're like, nope, that's
impossible. But then I started to realize that actually there are simpler ways to play the same songs, and that I could play along, and that wasn't embarrassing, that it was actually inspiring. Like I saw especially some women artists on stage playing and not just standing there singing, and playing chords I knew. And I was like, whoa, that actually, even though I know that person might not be as skilled an instrumentalist as Will, I'm inspired by them, and I want to have that effect on the young women who come to see my shows, and people who come to see my shows are primarily young women. So I want to play guitar. I want to not just write the words to my songs, but write some of the music too. And so I've been in a real, musical renaissance in my life right now.
That's so cool. I want to be mindful of your time, and so we'll get to the last question. But right before, I just wanted to highlight something that I heard you say about music that really struck a chord with me.
Oh, right, yeah.
Actually, the other day we were asking each other, like, what's the worst pun we've ever made? That's probably the worst. Okay, anyway, this really struck me, and I don't really have a question about it. I just want our listeners to hear what you said if they don't go and listen to that other interview. But I was wondering, what itch does music scratch for Maya that acting doesn't, and vice versa? Like, what do they give her? And you actually answered it in this interview. You said they feel like music is a place where you learn about yourself, and acting is where you learn about other people. That like acting is an empathetic exercise where you like put yourself in the shoes of someone else, but that music is like more introspective. Maybe you said it really much more beautifully and succinctly, but I just wanted to highlight that for our listeners. That really struck a chord with me about like just highlighting the differences between those two art forms. I thought that was beautiful. But
I think everyone also has their own. I think some people really see acting as a exploration of the self, and and their music as a character they play. Like I know people who write that way and think that way. For me, I feel like I'm always a better actor the better I'm in relationship with myself. Like I think therapy helps with acting. I think music helps with acting. Because the more you know about yourself, the more you can imagine yourself relating to anybody, which might be a little bit of what I was talking about seeing too much gray, is that I find that I can like understand the point of view even of people who are doing horrible things. And I think that's an important thing about acting is you really have to see your character. You have to see the world from their point of view and not judge their actions more than they would judge their own actions. But then with music, I really feel myself trying to delve into my own thinking and my own processing and getting to know myself better. So I think that the two really service each other in that way. The better you understand the world, the better you understand yourself, the better you understand yourself, the better you understand the world. Yeah.
I like that. That makes me think that in a certain sense, it depends on which part of the process we're talking about, because writing music, in my experience, has been deeply introspective, and I think I agree with what you're saying. But then once you're playing it live and it's been released, it very much becomes a character.
Yes, I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you.
And you're actually discovering things that you never intend. Well, in some sense, you seem to really intend. But these deeper spiritual truths emerge out of the music when you're playing them for like 2 years on end, say. And you're like, wow, that's really deep. And I did mean that about myself and what I was going through, but I didn't even understand that then, And
I did want to access that part of myself that I have to use to perform this song. And now I have more agency over it because I've done it over and over again for a year, you know?
Yeah. And with acting, I wonder if, for me, I sometimes have the most personal reflections after it's over and I'm having to talk about it endlessly in press. Because then I have to connect it to myself and I'm like, what is it? Okay,
How do I relate to this serial killer?
And I'm like, I think I do want to kill this journalist, right? No, that's not fair. I've never had that thought ever in my life.
I completely believe it.
Should I have said it more like this up at the end? I've never had that idea ever in my life.
Never wanted to. Yeah.
Okay, so back to you for our last question. If you could go back to 12-year-old Maya, is there anything that you would say or do?
I feel like I would talk to myself about practicing, and about body, in a big way. I think a thing that happened in my late teens, early 20s that I wish had happened in my earlier development is my relationship to my body shifted from one that was about how it looked to about what it can do. And that really happened through physical movement, where I was initially only really saw even taking a walk as like a path to burn calories, kind of like, and as a like, and then I started, it was really in drama school where I was like, whoa, I think it's fun to be able to do this dance and to be able to do a cartwheel and to be able to be, on stage and not get tired and to be able to work this long and feel good in my body and to, sleep on all kinds of different beds on tour and not be in pain. And so both in terms of like practicing guitar, practicing dance, physical exercise, yoga, movement, team sports, like that it's not about being good, it's about doing it. And if you do it, you do get better. And I would try to help my 12-year-old self understand that when that it's not, you're not failing. Like that in all of these things you apply yourself to, even if you feel like you're not as good as the other kids or whatever, it doesn't matter. Do it. Like I will thank you later. And I think that would be one of the things I would talk about. And the other things I could imagine telling myself, it's hard for me to know what the negative ramifications of them would be. Like if I was like, you don't have to worry so much, or like wait a little while to have sex, or like, whatever the advice would be. I feel like there's a world in which there could be ramifications, but I think I'd be like, look, everything is going to be okay. Your wildest dreams are going to come true, and you're not even going to be that happy about them. Like, don't worry. You're going to be disappointed by everything you could possibly dream of right now, and it'll all be fine. We would be really grateful, as a team, older self plus younger self, if you would like do some more sports and go to your dance class and go to your guitar lesson. We'd like to be a little better at guitar, and we'd like to be a bit better of a dancer. So,
requests.
Practice makes
Maya's talking to my 12-year-old self as well.
Requests and maybe like don't get an iPhone. I know it seems cool. Don't do it. Yeah. Like just stay with that. I love that chocolat you got. That chocolate, that little phone. Keep that shit. Don't do it. Don't go. Those might be my only things that I think would have no negative repercussions.
Those all sound like 12-year-old Maya would receive them, except for the iPhone. I think she'd turn around after you left and she'd be like
walk into an Apple store.
I'm getting an iPhone.
12-year-old Maya actually wouldn't. I was weirdly, this is a part of the tree hugging, no cursing vigilante. When Wi-Fi got installed at my mom's house upstate, I cried. Aww, like I was like, this is the place where my adults, I have all their attention.
Wow.
Like please don't bring this force here. I like that we have to use a DVD player. I like that here. And I think I would have been like, okay. And I would have wrote it down. I'd been like, future self said. Yeah. And then when we were like 15 and we wanted one, I remember actually even when I was first given one, I wasn't that excited about it. The whole addiction had to be formed. Like I wasn't initially that interested in, and then when the addiction was formed, now I find it difficult to think about getting rid of it. And I can think of all these practical reasons why I should like Google Maps or all these things where I'm like, well, I couldn't live without that. And but of course people did, and I could. And so I, all these reasons why I keep my little addiction to my reels and my background television.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maya.
Yeah, Maya, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
You can keep up with Maya Hawke's acting and music work online at Maya_Hawke. That's Hawke with an E.
Maya, do you remember your first impression of Penn? It's okay if you don't.
It's complicated, honestly, because I'm 25, so I didn't get to form a first impression of Penn. My first impression of Penn was as Gossip Girl, to my great pride and shame. So I didn't get to form a proper first impression, but my first impression was, oh, this guy is very nice. He is quite shy. He is I cannot tell if he is completely disinterested in me or if he just is minding his own business in like a really cool way. And that he was a very good actor and a very kind person.
Sophie and I also can't tell if he's completely disinterested in us or busy.
I was going to say, you're not the only one.
Still trying to figure that out.